Welcome back, friends. Today we are going to continue the discussion about how to identify what path you should take to get your book published and out in the world. And in my previous video 1 of this series, we talked about writing out and really defining clearly your big vision for your book, your goals, what you want to accomplish in an ideal world, what success looks like for you as a published author. And now we are really going to take the time to map that out, map your path to publication. We're going to start really looking at the steps that need to be taken to determine where you should start moving, okay? So you have a decent idea of what you want to accomplish with this book. It may be a little shifty still, and that's okay, but we're going to go with what you've started, with where your intuition has taken you, and we'll just continue to iterate from there. So if you haven't already listed out all of the answers to the questions that I've brought up in the last video, go back and do that because I really want these on paper. And let me tell you why. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how we can help identify the best place to start walking forward. With your answers from the last video, maybe you have a list of wants, a list of things that you would love to see accomplished with your book. Maybe you have an ROI goal in mind, maybe a monetary goal in mind, what you want to earn with this book, all of that, okay? So if you haven't done it already, take the time to write it out, and then we will move on, assuming that you've already done that, okay? So you have your list of wants, you have your list of goals, your ideal situation with this book. Now I want you to get out a clean piece of paper or a Word doc. I'm super old school, so I do things on paper all the time. I have notebooks like everywhere. I'm probably going to be buried in notebooks soon. Anyway, get out a fresh piece of paper or a Word doc, and I want you to list 3 columns, okay? You're going to list out, the first column is ideal fit, or sections, or even one piece of paper for each of these, okay? But the first one is ideal fit. The second one is good fit. And the third is I can live without. Would be nice to have, but I can live without. And then I want you to go through your list of wants, your list of goals, and I want you to put them in one category each, okay? You can't have them in more than one. What is going to be something that looks like an ideal fit? And if you really are driven to put all of your goals in that column, I'm going to challenge you to at least pull a couple out and put them in the can live without column, because we need to understand where your deal breakers are. Like I have to push as hard as I can to see my name on a physical book on a bookstore shelf. Whatever that means, if that's a deal breaker for you, if that is like ultimate goal number 1, that's in your ideal fit column. These are the criteria that you are going to really focus on when, I'm going to call it like publisher shopping, okay? We're going to go look for the publisher that meets as many of those ideal fit needs as possible. And then in the good fit column, maybe you judge your criteria like on a 1, 2, 3 scale. Like how many points would you give that criteria, that want, that desire? How many points is it worth to you to get that? Is it a 3? Is it like 3 stars? Is it a 2? Like you're like, yes, this is going to be awesome, but if I don't get it, I'm not going to totally be crushed. Or is it a 1 and you can live without it? So determine how you can put them in the different categories, but I do want to challenge you to separate this list out into those 3 groups. And it will really push you to get a very clear vision of what this book means to you, what getting it published helps you achieve, and what you can live without. What might be your less than realistic goals? Like if you're going, I want to be a New York Times bestseller, and you're feeling mandatory about it, then we got to have a conversation about how that looks, right? Versus if your ideal fit is I want to be an Amazon bestseller, that's a completely different path. So we need to understand, where are the first steps you are taking. Are you on your way to the New York bestseller list or the Amazon bestseller list, right? If those are if one of those is on your goal list, they're going to take you in different directions. So we need to understand where we're going. That is the point of this. Now I want you to take another piece of paper or a blank Word document, and I want you to list out all of the things that you do not want to happen in this process. We talked about this in the last video where I said, hey, what does failure look like to you? And I gave you the example of, with my book, if I'm not able to do anything but throw this baby on Amazon and I still don't do that, that's a fail for me. If I write an entire book and I never even click publish on Amazon, that's a fail, because I can. Anyone can. That is the point. Just anyone can do this thing, okay? Now, I'm not trying to diminish it, but I have had clients who have written books that probably a publisher would never, ever consider picking up. Like, no publisher on the face of the planet. There are a couple books in mind for this. And I don't want to diminish the value of these books to some readers. These authors put work and time into them, and there are no books that are worthless. They're just books that are less value to particular readers over others. And in the context of a business and a marketplace, there are books that are less value to publishers, who are the businesses behind, how books make money and how your book is maybe reaching more people in different areas. So that being said, I want you to really think about what you do not want to happen. It could be like, hey, I don't want to find a publisher who is going to completely strip my voice from this book. That's a great do not want to happen. Or maybe the title means so much to you that you want to find a publisher who will not force you to change that. Or you don't want to put more than $200 a month into this or whatever for marketing, right? Maybe you have a limit, like I do not want to go over this budget, right? So what, on top of like grand failure, like what is your big failure moment? What does a bad publication fit look like? It is probably the opposite of some of those things you've written, but I want you to just get specific. I gave you a few really good examples of something that would be specific that aren't necessarily reflected on your good fit or your ideal fit list. Maybe you do have ideal fit as it must be this title or whatever, right? But flip it around, throw it on what you don't want to happen, so you can have these two lists in mind when you're shopping. Like, who is going to give me the most control? Who is going to want to take this thing over for me so I don't have to deal with it? Whatever your goals are, we want to find someone who helps you hit your goals and someone who helps you avoid the things you don't want to happen. So we're going to keep those in mind. I want you to have these like good, positive things, and these I don't want them to happen. They're negative, they're draining, they're going to make you feel regret, they're going to make you look back on this process and just shake your head like, why did I ever do that? We don't want that to happen, right? So keep these in mind. We're going to keep hold of these lists. You're going to keep them handy because we're going to continue refining them most likely. You might, as you continue this research and this process of finding the perfect fit, add more to your do not want list, or even take some off the do not want and put them elsewhere. Like maybe you're starting, for example, maybe you don't really know what a typical agent would charge. And then you get out there and you find some obscure blog post that said like, oh, my agent charged me 30%. And you're going, okay, maybe that's your mental like starting point. And so you put on your do not want list, I don't want to be charged over 30% by my agent, right? Great start. But you get into the research more, or you start connecting with agents and they're like, oh yeah, I charge 10% or 15% or 20 or whatever the number is. And you realize like, okay, 30% is much higher than I really should be looking at. So you cross out 30 and you write 15 or whatever your new goal is, right? Whatever you want to define that as, but keep these things in mind. What What can you revise as you continue going? And that's really where our next sheet of paper comes in. So get out another sheet. And this is where you're going to list all of the unknowns. There is just no possible way that you or I or anyone else at this point can know everything there is to know about the publication market. There are some experts, right? There are some people who know a little bit more than others, but let's go ahead and assume that we all have questions about things, right? That's good. We want questions. We want to understand what we don't know and what we need to find out. So this list of unknowns is where you're going to list all of the questions that you have now that you need answered. How much does an agent charge? Will a publisher make me change my title? What kind of copyright issues do I need to be prepared for? What does it cost to put your book on Amazon? List them all. What questions do you have? What do you want to understand to help you make a better decision, to be more informed, to feel like you are advocating for yourself from a knowledgeable standpoint so that this book lands in the best place possible and you are happy, right? What are those questions? This might be information that, again, leads you to like very specific data points, or it might just be something that you need clarification on. For example, you might be relying on some older information. Let's say you have a cousin who published a book 20 years ago and they told you all about it. Well, if you're relying on something that happened 20 years ago, you have to know that things have changed in the publication market, the book publishing market in 20 years. So instead of just relying on your cousin's experience as like what will happen for you, just jot it down. Like cousin said, this is normal. Just confirm, or, go out and just see if this is the real deal still, right? So that you understand where you are currently standing, not where your cousin stood 20 years ago, right? So this all being said, my goal as your guide through this jungle of publication is to help you clearly vision your goals, understand how to determine the best publication fit for your needs, and make sure you get those answers to your unknowns so you can figure out the best fit. Or because I won't ever have all of the answers for you, right? But empower you to figure out a good source of information. And I'm going to be dropping resources as much as I can. There are lists out there. There are certain places that are better resources than others. Google, of course, is a never-ending dive into the underworld of society as far as, where you can really head with information, right? So I want to point you in the right direction so that by the end of this month, at least, you will have a very clear idea on what is going to work best for you and your book. Okay. So that is my goal, is to give you as much as I can, give you as much guidance as I can, and send you off into the world to, see what happens and get some information. And this is stuff that I work with my clients on. We identify goals and we identify the good fits, right? I do research for every single one of my clients who are looking at more of a traditional path. We go out and we do agent research. We do publication research, publisher research. And I do this research fresh each time because every book is different. Every author is different. I might have some information or some idea of what might be a good fit, but I like to really look at it from a fresh set of eyes because everything, changes. Everything is up for change. Publishers change how they do business as well. This is a very volatile market, volatile meaning ever changing. We're not in a settled environment because technology is making these things, books are more readily available in so many more ways and platforms and devices and all of that, right? So we want to just make sure that we're getting the freshest information. So if you're watching this video a year from now, just know that things have changed in the past year, and you want to make sure that if you're defining your goals and you don't go do your research for 6 months, you're going to probably have some mismatches that need to be corrected and shifted. Again, we're shifting, right? So that is it for today's video. I'm going to continue this whole process of helping you define your goals and find the best publication fit. And in the next video, I'm going to give you some information about really how memoir should be approached as a book to be sold. Okay, so we're going to talk about this a little bit more, because this is a very important point that some writers don't know about until they start researching. And these are also topics that change in the market. So anyway, I will see you in the next video, right?